All right, hello and welcome to Foundations Digital Strategy Podcast. My name is Doyle Bueller, and today in Foundations episode 1.0, I'm going to be talking about the art and science of selling better online. All the strategies that we can use to actually build a strong foundation for our businesses. Just to kind of get started, honestly, I think we're in one of the greatest times in history as we have access to literally billions of people around the world, right? The market of what the internet has created has been fantastic. But you know what? It's also been the worst time in history because we have access to, well, literally billions of other people around the world. Competition is fierce, and you're one click. I like to use my finger a lot, but look at your pointy finger. You're really one click away from your customer, from your competitors. Well, so your customer can basically walk or talk or click to wherever they want at any time. So we really have to be aware of how are we actually building a story? How are we actually building a strategy to help our customer get to where they want to go. And it's really never been easier to get your story out there, right? But it's also the hardest time because there is so much more noise out there. And it's really important to be able to understand how do we actually move things forward? How do we actually have these conversations about our product, our service, and that sort of thing? If you're familiar with Daniel Pink, one of his books, I think it's probably been about 5+ years ago, was called To Sell Is to Human, right? And it's never, what he's saying is that it's never been easier to find your buyers, but it's been harder and harder to sell. And within the last 10 years, you know, how we sell your product, your service, your content, your idea, yourself has changed so much more in the last 10 years than the last 100 years, which is really profound. But guess what? It's also remarkably true, because this is where the challenge is how do we convert our mindset, our digital mindset, from sort of traditional selling to digital? And as I'm going to get into, it's actually not that different. And that's something that's really quite surprising and something that we really kind of need to tackle here as well. Now, look, I don't consider myself a salesperson. Selling is hard. But you know what? There's some fun stats here that, you know, some salespeople can't sell as well. So 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. 25% of salespeople make a second contact and stop. 12% of salespeople only make 3 contacts and stop. Only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts, and on and on and on, right? And I'm not sure if there's any sort of statistical significance to these stats, but the point is that, look, we don't spend a lot of effort when it really comes down to it. And so how can we actually make that easier? How can we actually present a process, a methodology, a framework that actually helps with how we sell in the digital space as well? There's a lot of stuff that we need to be concerned about, right? The pain of business online. There's no real community, no real influence, no leads, no sales, no profit, no known results. You know what? And it's cost. And a lot of businesses have spent a lot of money not getting the return that they expect or that they actually should at the end of the day. And so, you know, I'm going to ask you the question: Where are you now with selling? And are you kind of in that blue ocean, far away from anything, where it's a sort of a small perspective, and you need to do a lot more of it? Or is it something that you're mastering in terms of how do you integrate digital and that sort of thing? So something to consider is, where are you now with selling, and what can you actually do to make things work and to actually move the business forward as well with selling, with using the tools of digital to kind of get you there, to get your business to where it needs to be. And so I'm going to ask you know, what are your biggest challenges online? Selling is obviously a big one, and that's really what I'm going to be talking about. But sometimes, you know, can you go a little bit deeper and say, well, what are some of the biggest selling challenges online? And hopefully I'll be able to address that. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, feel free to just ask me the question or send it to me. I'm pretty easy to find pretty much everywhere online. And at the end of the day, it's to give you a framework so that we can actually, you know, as Pablo Picasso said, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. Just to give you a sense that, look, there's some processes, some frameworks, some methodologies that you can use to actually help your business. And that's what's really important at the end of the day, is can you utilize these to make it easier and to think more strategically as well. What happens when nobody buys from you? guess what? Businesses don't survive, unfortunately, and there's some stats that I'll show later on, but it can be quite significant. So we need to really sort of pay attention and get this going and say this is how we're going to be able to build our selling our sales online as well, because that's what's really important. And it's not just about the it's not about the Uberish app, the cool website, the amazing social profile. It's more about the conversation, right? It's about your story at the end of the day. It's about the story that you're helping your audience overcome and taking them through on a journey. But what's the real story of business online? Guess what? There's 3 specific things. There's conversations, community, and connections. And if you're looking for conversions, you have to have all of these pieces in place. Otherwise, there's not going to have a conversation. You're not going to have a community. You're not going to have a connection. And guess what? That means you're not going to have conversions as well. So it's really important to really kind of understand how these all fit together. If you're missing pieces of this, you know what? That's a good place to start to look at is how can you actually do that? And what I want to create here is how do you actually continue this conversation? Because again, with digital, it's a huge opportunity, but we have to have these pieces in place so that it actually works where we want it to and works appropriately. Now, there's also another concept, what I call developing your digital genius. And it's not so much being the expert in digital, because guess what? You're the expert in your business, in your field, and that's obviously super important. But really as important is also to kind of know what you don't know in terms of digital strategy and digital marketing and that sort of thing. So that it elevates you above your competition. It gives you something to work on. It really sort of paints the way to say, this is what we need to do with business so that we're able to with my business rather, so that we're able to succeed. So it gives you a tremendous competitive advantage being in the digital environment, but you have to know these pieces to play and when to use them and how. And again, that comes down to fundamental digital strategy. It helps you develop your new customers online. It develops your what I call digital leadership, and I'll get into that in a minute. But it also is helping you expand your knowledge about what works online and what doesn't. Okay, so when somebody calls you up and say, hey, do you want to, pay $3,000 to get your name listed first on Google, you'll go, no, not really, because I know how to be able to do that, right? So it saves you from wasting your time, wasting your money, and wasting your resources as well. It gives you some structure, some focus to be able to do that. So I really encourage you to, develop this digital genius so that you know what you can do and what you can't do. And it basically comes down into four key areas, right? We're talking the bottom left of disrupted zone, where you're feeling a lot overwhelmed, confused, non-competitive, where you might not do anything, analysis paralysis, that sort of thing. And then we can also have some segments of the technician zone. And most business owners are technicians. And I don't mean like technical, the high-tech stuff of digital and that sort of thing, but they know what they need to know for their business, but that's sort of where it stops. And so it's really important to kind of, how do we actually embrace the tech, but we need to be able to implement it as well across our business and across our digital ecosystem. And then on the bottom right, we have thought leader or guru zone, right, which is good ideas, but little knowledge to be able to grow scale within the business. So it's really important to say, okay, we can be in these spaces, but where are we now, right? And where can we be? And where we really want to be is that digital genius zone, where it gives you that clarity and that certainty to understanding the digital to grow and scale within the business as well. So it really gives you a platform to say, this is what I can do with the business, so this is how I have to develop it as well. So it's really important to just put that in perspective. Pick the one which you're in right now, but it gives you something to work towards in terms of how do you actually improve, how do you actually make things a little bit better as well. Are you in the disrupted zone? Are you in the technician zone? Are you in the thought leader or guru zone? Or are you in the digital genius zone as well? And I've been in digital for 17 plus years. I had a large worldwide e-commerce business and developed a lot of sort of agency level tools and strategies and that sort of thing. And what I found was that there were some very key characteristics that the businesses that were doing well had. Right, the ones that were kind of struggling and not doing so well, they were missing a couple of these pieces, and it was actually quite profound, because if I found that if they had all these pieces in place, you know what, they were making things happen. They were creating that impact. They were creating a business as well, which is obviously very important at the end of the day. And the 7, I call them the 7 disciplines of digital leadership, and it's what I cover through in my book and a lot of the talks that I do as well. But number 1 is they have a sound digital strategy that connects and communicates who they are online. Number 2, they have a detailed content plan that helps them discover and empower their voice online. Number 3, they have learned how to use social media properly as part of an ever-growing community. Number 4, they understand that branding, visuals, and videos are a significant part of what they develop and create online for their audience. Number 5, there is alignment with their website, their content, their strategy, and their sales process as well, which is really key. And that's actually what we're going to talk about into depth in this episode as well. Number 6, they have established and continue to develop a sales funnel that is continuous and always working for their business. And again, this is something that a lot of us miss. We just kind of assume that sales are going to happen, and they're not. And these two, number 5 and 6, number 6 rather, is what we're going to be talking about here. Is how can we actually develop a sales process, a sales methodology, to be able to move our audience through their buyer's journey. And number 7 is they realize that advertising and analytics is critical for their long-term success in order to expand their audience and generate more business. A lot of businesses, if you ask them, how did you do on Facebook ads, or have you run Facebook ads? And they'll go, yeah, and I lost like tons of money. It's not so much that they lost money, is that they didn't have the strategy to be able to actually establish what they need to get done. And in agency land where, companies are spending $100,000, $200,000 a month on advertising, the solution is really kind of quite unfortunate. But if it's not working, what they'll do is they'll throw more money on it. Here's another $50,000 to spend on advertising, right? But guess what? They're missing all those 6 other pieces as well. So it still doesn't work. So it doesn't matter if your budget is $100 a day or $10 a day or $10,000 a day, right? You really have to have these pieces in place so that you can actually move people throughout your whole digital ecosystem. This is a process, this is a methodology, and that's what really is important, is that we can direct advertising to any of these specific components. We can direct our community, we can direct our social, but only if they're in place at that specific time as well. And this is what I call the Breakthrough Digital Strategy, and it's part of my second book called Breakthrough. And what it encompasses is 7 core elements, methodologies, processes, whatever you want to call it, foundations that bring a business through developing their digital ecosystem to grow their sales as well. So as we talked about, discovery and strategies, number 1, content's number 2, social and sharing 3, video content, visuals 4, web alignment is 5, and number 6 is online lead generation, and 7 is advertising. So what I'm going to talk about today is online lead generation, what we can do and how we can do it better as well by having a proper strategy as well. And at the end of the day, right, it's about growing the business. We want to make sure that we're able to do that, and we're able to do it effectively, and we're able to develop it consistently as well. Just a quick outline of how I'm going to cover this. First step is design, second step is build, and third step is maximize as well. And honestly, in my how's the best way to put this? Sales funnel, right? What has been your experience with sales funnels rather? And in a lot of cases, I think that they're really kind of looking at the problem in the wrong way. And even structurally from a standpoint of that, like a funnel is designed to sort of go from a wide opening to a narrow opening, and it's always pointed in the down direction and that sort of thing. So, and a lot of sales funnels are not really very helpful to that buyer's journey. They're great for selling stuff, right? But you know what? Are you developing a long-term relationship where it's less transactional? It's sort of less of one product and more of how do we actually transform the business as well? So look, the sales funnels, there obviously is some good things to work, but what can we actually do to make this better, to make a sales funnel 2.0 or whatever you want to call it, because that's what we really need to do. So that traditional sales funnel, guess what? Most people can spot them from a mile away. So you have to be really careful how you use them, and they have to make you feel good at the end of the day as well. And I find that a lot of them, they kind of make you feel icky as well. So it's important that we have these pieces together, but what we're doing is we're actually helping the customer along their buying process, along their storyline as well. And that's key as well, is how do we actually help them take them from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 in their buyer's journey as well. Because without that, are you establishing yourself as a long-term business, or just sort of a flash in the pan? I'm going to sell a lot of my product through a sales funnel, and away I go. And yes, the money is obviously there if you've got the right product and the right setup. But guess what? A lot of people, again, are becoming a little bit more skeptical, and they know that people are being sold to as they go through things as well. So you have to really be careful of how you put these pieces together. This is what I call a buyer's value cycle. So it's really, how do we actually add value to the process along the way? And what it comes down to is that there's, I ask this question all the time, but are you missing 67% of your market? 3%, yeah, people are buying from you. They're looking for you. They know that this is the person that wants to help or service or product or whatever it is that you're selling. So they're actively shopping and buying from you. Right? Then we have 30%, which, guess what? They're not interested in what you do, how you do it, whatever the case may be. So it's really important that you don't sort of spend time with these people as well. But then what you have is you have 67% of customers that are going through their buying journey, that you can actually connect with them and you can help them along that journey. And if you're able to help them, guess what? You're able to move them into that actively shopping and ready to buy. So 30% are currently unconscious to you, 30% are aware for the future, 7% are open to you, and again, as I said, 3% are active and ready to buy as well. So the trick is just because they're not ready to buy right now doesn't mean they'll never buy from you. And it's really important, because it's no different than you walking into a store. Unless you have a specific widget or whatever that you want to buy and you know what it is, you're going to shop around, right? And a lot of the assumption that we've taken with digital is that, oh, well, people are ready to buy and they're going to buy now, so I'll put it in a contact us page or whatever, right? And to maximize that, and unfortunately it doesn't work, because guess what? Not all the people who actually visit your website are ready to buy. So we need to be able to nurture it over time. We need to be able to create a value sequence that provides good value along the way, not just a single transactional sale. How do most businesses deal with a nurture sequence at this point? They really don't, right? Some businesses will have a contact us page, and we'll also have, an about us page, but, typically that's about how awesome the business is and not really how they're going to help you as well. So again, if you can put these pieces in place, start to look at it as a nurture sequence, as a value sequence, you're then able to move those people from, uninterested observer and help them in that story as well, in that buyer's process. All right, so another concept just to understand as well is what's called the zero moment of truth, and that was built by one of the vice presidents of Google. I think it was back in 2011. But what they came up with was that in e-commerce world, which, we have to take some lessons from that as well, is that typically what will happen is after 7 hours of contact or, viewing or that sort of thing, 7 hours of spending time with you is what it comes down to. 11 touch points and 4 channels that people will be in that position of that 3%, right? So it's very clear that, look, if we are able to graduate people step by step and spend more time with them, give them more opportunity to see us, to hear us, to learn from us, and specific touch points as well, through websites, through social, through PDFs, through all of the content that you're producing, as well as on 4 channels, they're going to be moving towards doing business with you as well at the end of the day. So it's really, again, this is kind of how business is organized and how we can sort of understand what's really important when you're actually trying to sell to somebody online. It comes down to the know, like, trust, right? We've all heard about that. I talk about it an awful lot. And so what Google is saying is that until we spend that time with you, I don't know you, I don't like you, and I don't trust you, so I'm not going to spend money with you. So it's something that's really important to say, hey, how do I get that? How do I get people to spend time with me? How do I get people to touch points with them as well? Because if I'm not doing that, you're not moving them towards that 3%, towards that ultimate sale as well. So just some quick questions as we go along here. I know sometimes if you're listening or watching or whatever, just something to scribble or think about as well. But take a look at this comes down to fundamental development of the strategy. And that's obviously another topic that I'll be discussing at some point as well. But simply, look at your strategy. You can answer that by what are we about? Okay, what fundamentally is your business about? What do you do best? Okay, what helps business get done? What do you feel that you're really good at? What are you doing that somebody else is not doing rather? Take a look at what makes it work as well. Is this something that's intellectual property? Is it a specific tool? Is it a specific way of doing it? Is it a trend that you're harnessing as well? So to really try to understand what makes your business work. And then look at the value as well. And this is what we'll start to get into as well. But it's not just that single transactional value as well. This is again how you can see a long-term strategic type business as compared to just sort of a click and buy type business as well. So look at what value are you going to deliver today, tomorrow, and next year. It's not just about that product or service now, but it's how are you going to develop that value to your customer over time. Because again, you're trying to match up what you can do with what the customer is looking for, what your audience is looking for. So how do you help them along that journey to be able to get them to that point where they go, yes, I'm in that position where I know enough, I can see enough, I'm ready to go. So that's super critical. So let's start to build it. Typically what we need is 4 specific things how do we actually deliver value to our audience? So the first one is understanding their interest and motivation. The second one is enabling them. The third one is giving them some specific actions. And then the fourth one is developing some solutions as well. So it's really important that we have these. How are you going to help your audience along their buyer's process, right? And again, they may not have identified it going, oh, I'm going through a buyer's process right now, right? It's not like that at all. It's, again, look at what you do when you purchase things and how you purchase things as well, and you'll see a lot of similarities, right? And that's really what you're looking for, is what gets you interested rather, what motivates you, how are you going to help them, what can they do, right? What actions do you want them to take, and then what unique solutions do you provide as well? And how that's broken down is to basically start by productizing your service. And this can be done with what I call gifts, products for prospects, and your core business as well. So a gift is, it's much more personal than, say, there's a lot of terminology. There's lead magnets or freebies or whatever the case may be. But you know what? If you're giving somebody a gift, the whole terminology of it is something that has some value. Right. So if you've ever been to a conference or a trade show, you get the trinkets and that sort of thing. Is that really a gift? No, it's not. It's a trinket, right? So look at a gift as being something with some good core value, because that's what you're trying to get people interested in as well. And how we actually build it is what's called an ascending transaction model, where we're taking value over time that helps the customer understand where they are and what they can actually, how they can actually build and grow and that sort of thing. So the first one on the left is your gifts, right? So this is moderate value. There's no commitment and there's no risk to them. They don't have to spend a lot of time. They get something that's truly valuable, like a podcast, like a how-to, like a quiz, like a checklist. And really what you're trying to do here is capture attention. From there, we need a nurture sequence, which I'll get into shortly, but we then need to move into what's called the product for prospects. And this is a higher value, it's a low commitment, and it's low risk. So something like a webinar, training, a workshop, a consultation, an assessment, that sort of thing. So again, the idea is you're spending time with this person to be able to move them forward. So, and technically you're not really having a sales conversation as well. Not until sort of the end of the product for prospects does the idea of selling comes in, and then we sort of really have to identify what core business are we going to be providing. And sometimes what can be done is you can break it down into gold, silver, bronze, to deliver rather your full and remarkable solution. So this is where the sales conversation starts to happen. Is any time before that customer's not ready, that audience is not ready to be sold to. And look, there are people who are going to, to be able to jump in and out of this at certain points along the way, which is totally fine. But for the average, remember that 67%, that amount of your audience is going to be need to taken through these steps, step by step as well. So the idea is providing value over time. And if we're able to do that, that's again how we're able to spend more time, to get to the know, like, and trust aspects of it as well. So how do you develop a nurture campaign in between these steps? Well, there's obviously taking all your information that you have, all your social media posts, your blogs, your websites, your videos, sound bites, ad campaigns, that sort of thing. Move them towards a landing page, and then move them towards a gift, which is a checklist, and an email sequence as well. And I've mapped it out here, and you won't see once that I'm trying to sell to them. Okay, the email is really how are you going to educate and inform them. It's not about come buy my business, because guess what? People aren't ready for that yet. People want to understand who you are and what value you can deliver to them. So until they really get there, excuse me, any of your emails, any of your communication to kind of move them from the gifts to the product for prospects to the core business needs to have that information that's going to help them and educate and not sell to them as well. So that's really important, is that it's a no sales selling approach, right? It takes the value that you offer and it aligns it with the value that the customer is looking for as well. And that's the journey that we need to take them on. So quickly, again, something to quickly do. What are your ascending transactions? What are your gifts? List them out. Start with one, right? It doesn't have to be complex. It can be pretty easy. So start with one. Ideally, once you do one of these sets, then go back and do another one, or add additional steps in between, or that sort of thing. So my gifts are, what are they? List them out. My product for prospects are, again, see what you can do, how you can put them together. And then my core business is such and such. So again, we have to link them. We have to align these so that it makes sense for the user. You're creating that whole customer journey, that whole customer map that guides them along that process as well, to get them to that solution that you're specifically offering as well, rather. All right, and step number 3 is how to maximize this brand value equation. And this really comes about, as I've talked about a lot, is this the hero's journey, right? Being about your customer, the hero of their story. You're not unfortunately, doesn't matter how awesome you are, it still comes down to what is the audience experience, how are they experiencing it, and how you can help them as well. So you're not Luke Skywalker if you're a Star Wars fan. You're not Luke Skywalker, right? You're Yoda. So it's important to notice the difference there. That Luke Skywalker, he's the hero of Star Wars. Yoda is the mentor. He's the person helping Luke, helping him rather, guide him to that path that he was on as well. And I've got a couple of canvases as well, and I might send a link to these, but they basically give you some ideas to help you build your stories and your strategies and your content as well. So keep an eye out for those, and if you don't see any in any of the links, please just ask and I'll get those over to you. But this one is called your strategic content storytelling planning canvas, and looking at your purpose, your hero, your key messages, your success, your call to action, how your story matters, your hero journey, your outcomes, your style and tone, and then your marketing support as well. That's really the fundamental pieces that you can help build that story that's really important. So how do you maximize this brand value sequence, right? I've kind of shown you how it fits together, what pieces you can put in it. So how do we make it a little bit better? So step number one is defining your audience, right? Who are they? Can you be more specific? If you're trying to talk with everybody, nobody's going to be listening, right? So make sure that you identify that. Make sure, number two, that you have the detailed process as well. What steps do you need to take them through for your touch points, your time, your channels, your zero moment of truth, right? So what steps do you need to take to get them through that 67%, get them through that journey as well? You're going to need some landing pages, right? Some people have them, but they need to be focused. They need to sort of have that structure behind them so that you know exactly what to do and when, and making sure that they're unique. They focus on a specific campaign, goal, or outcome. It's one gift, for example. It's not 20 gifts. What is that one gift that you want to be able to offer to people? How is it going to change their lives? And how can they get it, right? That's the key starting point as well. And making sure that you test it. You're going to need your email management, right? So having tools available to be able to deliver that message from or between your gifts, between your product for prospects, between your core business, right? So having these tools available to deliver your value over time. And that's key. And again, remember, it's not a sales conversation. It's an education. It's informing them. It's helping them understand what it is that's really important about their challenge. Number 5, you're going to need content, right? Tell your complete and remarkable story through visuals, video, branding, text, you name it. So this comes out in your emails. This comes out in your landing pages, in the content that you produce, your blogs to get them to that first point as well. So it's really, really important. And this, again, is one of those disciplines of digital leadership, is that your content plan and strategy has to be done up front so you know what to say and when. Number 6 is advertising, right? This allows you to grow your audience beyond your current sphere of influence, because it can be a lot bigger if the groups are properly tagged and targeted and that sort of thing. So we can look at behavioral advertising and that sort of thing. So that really helps get your message out there. But again, you have to have the other steps in place before, you should spend a dime, because without that, people don't know where to go. They don't know how to connect. They don't know, what story you're trying to help them along as well. So it's really important to have those pieces up front and ready to go. And the last one is measure, right? What are your key performance indicators to ensure that you're getting the proper results? Is it leads? Is it, traffic? Well, it wouldn't be traffic. Please don't use traffic as a key performance indicator. But it's leads, it's conversations, it's direct emails, it's people watching a specific video that's sort of a certain way along. It's people coming to your workshops. It's that sort of thing. That's something very measurable and very tangible as well. So some tools you're going to need: email management. There's lots to go on there. There's Agile, Entreport, MailChimp, simple download form on a website as well. There's lots of widgets that actually do that. You're going to need some autoresponders, some automation, some active campaign, Entreport, and then landing page builders as well. ClickFunnels, lead pages. There's quite a few, and even some of the other ones, Squarespace, that you can produce landing pages as well. And that really kind of shows you that, well, look, if you have ClickFunnels, that's great, but what other pieces do you need? And hopefully I've been able to outline what's really important. It's not just about having that fancy flow through of buy this and buy that type thing. So, but get the tools. You will need them. But you don't need to spend, again, something simple. I know landing page builders can be quite expensive as well. So, start small. Can you fit something to your existing website through the service, through Wix or Squarespace or whatever, WordPress? They usually have some simple tools to be able to start with. So then you can graduate into something a little bit more expensive. Because without the structure, without sort of that strategy and that framework behind it, you can spend, ClickFunnels is great, but you can spend a lot of money before you're actually doing anything. And I find that's another sort of big error that a lot of businesses make, is that they purchase these tools, Infusionsoft, ClickFunnels, you name it, spending a lot of cash flow just to get things set up, and they're not even ready. And they don't have the strategy, they don't have the content, they don't have the community, and they're not able to build that as well. So it's unfortunately wasted money. So remember, it's not about your online persona. purpose, rather. It's not just your business to deliver your true value to your audience. You need to create your selling value. You need to move your audience into your own digital ecosystem to continue the conversation. And you need to develop your leadership, your authority as well as you get into this. And as we know, survival is not assured, right? Growth is never automated or automatic. And that's really important, is that we can automate pretty much, well, a lot of these steps can be automated, but guess what? If they're not providing that value, it doesn't really matter if you have the greatest, latest and greatest tech and the super duper tool that works and does this and that. If you don't have that fundamental strategy behind it, it's not going to work as well as it could if you did it otherwise. 60% of small businesses cease operating within the first 3 years of starting, right? Why? Well, a lot of them don't know how to sell, or stop selling, or not sure how to sell as well. And hopefully this is sort of pointed you in the right direction in terms of what you can do. And I'd like to finish with, the digital strategy challenge to sell more. So as I outlined, create and organize your strategy with your sales process according to the 3 steps. Deliver your ascending transaction model to the know, like, trust triangle, and get all these digital pieces in place and correct so that you can put your story out into the world. And fundamentally, that's what it comes down to, is can you create and organize your strategy, your pieces, your gifts, your products for prospects, your core business, so that it makes sense. And again, so that you're guiding that customer along the pathway. And this really is your breakthrough strategy, and this can really take you a lot of places. So see what you can sell. Go through all these steps. Take some time to go through each one of them as well, and see where it takes you, and how you can actually work a little bit better and a little bit more detailed. And I often talk about this story as well. What's 1 degree off course? We talk an awful lot about the percentage. So are you in the top 1% or 10% or 8% or whatever, which is fantastic, but that's a really relative number. And I used to fly in the military and had a commercial pilot's license as well. And one of the rules of thumb is that if you're traveling 10 kilometers in a straight line, if you're 1 degree off course, you're going to be 1 kilometer. Did I say miles or kilometers? It doesn't really matter. If you're traveling 10 kilometers forward, you're going to be 1 kilometer off course if you're 1 degree. Right. And when you think about it, like 1 degree, that's not a lot. So if you're traveling across a country like Canada, United States, Australia, that's how many thousand kilometers is that? So you basically wouldn't land where you're intended to go, right? So it's really important that this is where your strategy comes into place. This is the 1 degree for sales. This is the 1 degree for strategy that helps you keep that correction, so that when you land at your destination, you're actually there and you're not 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers off course as well. So it's really important to understand that that's what these do, is that gives you that 1 degree, that tweaking, that correction, course correction along the way, to be able to help the business succeed and thrive as well. So remember, you can create the purchase pathway for your ideal customer. You can create the story for them. It's about creating your own certainty, your own future for the real hero for your business. And you know what? Create the call of adventure for your hero. It's really important that you kind of engage them and enlighten them and help them understand their challenges and how they can overcome them. And this is telling more of their story with your strategy as well, which is really, really important. And that's about it. So I'd love to, if you can, take the Digital Genius Assessment and get a free paperback copy of Breakthrough and links to the business canvases as well. You can start at www.leadership.digital. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully these have been helpful. If you liked what you've seen, please like, share, leave a comment, get in touch. Would love to help you along the way as well. So thank you very much, and we will see you online.